The apparel industry is being forced to reimagine itself in the face of pressure to meet new green standards. Suddenly, what we thought was sustainable turns out to be merely a good try, but not good enough. While apparel needs to now recycle, be circular, reduce carbon emissions, and lower water usage, it also has to appeal to consumers who want clothing that is eye-catching, comfortable, high quality, and personalized. That's a big ask for any industry, let alone an industry that runs on razor-thin margins and almost as thin lead times. I'm Jane Singer, and welcome back to A Seat at the Table. In each episode, we sit down with some of the smartest and most innovative people who join us as guests on this show and share a ton of valuable business and life-enhancing insights. A big shout out to all of our esteemed listeners in 140 countries around the world. Thank you for being here with us today. Today we are joined by the legendary Giusy Battoni, founder and CEO of CLAS, which stands for Creativity, Lifestyle, and Sustainable Synergy. CLAS is an international eco-hub based in Milan, which since the very beginning has been advocating for a new generation of fashion where the fusion of design, innovation, communication, and responsibility shape an informed and competitive business able to play both at an economic and social level. Giusy is a pioneer in the field of sustainable textiles, having started out in 2007 before they coined the term sustainability, and we were still talking about being eco-friendly, if we were talking about it at all. She has superior technical knowledge within the raw materials market sector, as well as precise marketing and communication skills. In this podcast, Giusy will be discussing what she sees as the biggest challenge facing the apparel industry. Why sustainability has to be about more than just environmental impacts in order to be effective, and how the apparel industry could reimagine itself to benefit both people and planet. The apparel industry is a complicated and constantly changing industry. To win, you not only have to know what's happening, you need to understand why and how it could potentially impact your business. When apparel industry executives want a sharp view of global supply chains from factory to selling floor, they turn to Inside Fashion. Why should you read Inside Fashion, you might ask? Well, in the words of one subscriber, Inside Fashion consistently provides an extremely comprehensive yet concise take on the apparel industry, simplifying key topics and making them accessible and understandable, while also highlighting what's next on the horizon. We couldn't have said it better. Find out how you and your team could benefit from Inside Fashion. Head on over to insidefashionlive.net. That's insidefashionlive.net to learn more. Now let's sit down with Giusy and get a fresh view on sustainability. Giusy, it's really wonderful to have you on the podcast. I've been wanting to have you on A Seat at the Table. The last time we spoke, you shared so many interesting insights of what you see happening in the fashion industry, and certainly being in Europe, based in Italy, you're really at the heart of where everything is going on in terms of fashion, whether it be fashion textiles or fashion garments. So I'm really keen to hear what your thoughts are. It really does seem that with the exception of teens and tweens, fashion has really lost its magic.
Well, you couldn't say it better, Jane. So first of all, thanks for having me. It's really a pleasure, to be here today to share with you what I'm living every day and what I'm learning every day, because now more than ever, things are evolving each single moment. And you have to be really listening to all the signal indication that the market is giving. And so important to interact with people around the world. So yes, unfortunately, I have to say that fashion seems to have lost the magic. And I think the biggest challenge that, let's start with analyzing the problem that we have behind. That can be also a big stimulus to do something much better. That's the way I look at it. I think that we are in a period where the values for the consumer, first of all, has become different ones. Simply, apparel is not the status, that's not representing anymore the symbol that it was having some years ago or some decades also ago. Traveling, well-being, all these kind of sectors are becoming more and more important in the eyes of the consumer. But at the same time, we have seen that especially the fashion, the apparel, has decreased its kind of value elements, When you get dressed, I think, Jane, you are trying to express yourself. You try to express the way you feel, the way you want to look. It's something very close to our identity. And the apparel that we look around, we can see around, has no identity at all. It looks like we have lost identity, trying to prefer something that is not just cheaper. I don't think it's just cheaper, but it's really something that is going to uniform, let's say, the look and the touch, but it's not giving something special. I remember having the magic to say, I'm dressing with these, and these make me feel like there was an interconnection with what we are wearing. And it looks like we have lost it, Jane. Don't you think so? For me, this is one of the key things. And it's a period where, we started with class in 2007. And I remember that a lot of people didn't even heard, generally speaking, about our, let's say, DNA, that is how to innovate in a responsible way. Sustainability for us is let's go on innovating, but in a responsible way. And responsible to us mean the lowest impact as possible on people or environment, on oceans and animals, simply like that. And we were a little bit complaining about the fact that nobody was talking about these new values with this new way to. But today is even worse, because everybody's talking about it, but we lost completely the value that we should have around it. Because I believe that fashion needs to be beautiful, needs to be innovative, but we need, in order to be interesting and valuable, we need to align good companies and good products. And good companies and good products means companies, first of all, that behaves well, and has ethical.
I think it's interesting what you're bringing up, but I just wonder what's happened with fashion brands. I mean, why are we seeing what it appears to me to be just a total lack of creativity?
It's very sad to confirm this, but I think it's under the eyes of everybody. I think at a certain point, the fashion into brackets works has become really just, it has to be a business because we are in business and we are here to perform. But fashion is also an emotional. Fashion is not just making garments, it's not just making thousands or millions of garments. Fashion, if we talk about magic, if we talk about something healthy, is something that is the first expression of culture, creativity, and individuality. So what we have seen in the years is that this value of identity, individuality, expression of activity has been becoming less and less. And we have heard this word, democratizing, becoming more and more important. And then I think it has been quite problematic to restart a conversation with a consumer. That, by the way, after the COVID period, wanted just to look about, conquering the world, going out to feel well. So we have seen the conquer of cosmetics, for example, spa, everything that is looking at you instead of being generic or going into another direction, while fashion has become more and more depersonalized at all. And that's why I think one of the, let's say, of the factor that for me it's really important, it's first of all, it's creativity, because we choose with the eyes, Jane. If our eyes doesn't see something interesting, what's the point? But on top of creativity, we have to open the concept of creativity, that is not just about the look and touch, but it's also the creativity of doing good things. And good things, it's quality, and quality has become another word. But the key thing is also to understand who has done these garments, where are they made, how they are made, which is the journey that a garment or a pair of shoes. But if you think that textile is in our life 24 hours a day, so I think we have to restart a conversation about how to do things. The fact that people is talking about the digital product passport, for me it's important, because the digital product passport maybe is not telling you the level of sustainability, but it's telling you who has done it and where. And for the consumer, it's sort of information that at the moment nobody can find. For example, a lot of people is putting in the hand tag that the composition in organic cotton or recycled polyester. But everybody noticed that there are organic cotton that cost €2 and organic cotton that cost €2,000. So we have at least 3 challenges. The first one is about creativity. So to restart a conversation about the emotional power and the identity. The second is the innovation that is not just about inventing something, but giving answer to new needs. And innovative can be also business model like the upcycling, for example, where you are not using any more new sources and you upgrade what you already have. And the third one is communication, Jane, and I'm sure you got the same all over the world. If we have a new generation of material, new generation of innovation, how we can communicate like we were doing 30 years ago, where nobody was caring about the material, for example, and the impact that the production of the material of the garment was there. Sometimes people think that sustainability is very expensive, but sometimes that's not true. It's just that when you see a t-shirt that costs €5 and another €50, and they're both organic cotton, people think that the €50 t-shirt is expensive. But just because the communication that I gave is just about a generic ingredient, we need to be more holistic and try to understand what is behind it. So in summarizing, we need to go back to the identity and to the value of apparel as something that is going to support the human being in order to define his own, value, his own reality. And we need to do it also checking if what we buy is really well made and where and how, in order to be sure that we have seen really big crises about reputation recently.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talk a lot about quality at Inside Fashion. It's something that I'm quite passionate about. And, there's a lot of conversations around, does the consumer really know the difference? I think they do. A lot of other people would argue with me and say that the consumer really doesn't know quality, as it doesn't really matter as long as it's a famous brand or it's something that looks cute. Certainly, a lot of people will tell me that people will not pay more for better quality. What are you seeing around that? We're going to take a quick break now, and then we'll be right back.
We were hiring when we were making 50 to 100K monthly losses.
And why? Welcome to episode 1.
I can't think of a single founder who's been around for a decent amount of time in business who hasn't had their tunnel of year. This was that year. We're going to be okay, yeah, Sheree. Some are going to hear this and think, you TDP. But hear me out. You only have to do the math to understand that very soon we were $500,000 down.
I think it's a very interesting point, quality. Because quality in the past was a fabric or a garment that was long-lasting, for example, or was using a special treatment, or was using a special technique, or was using a special material. Today, we have such a lot of technologies and a lot of possibilities. So we have to go again into 2 subjects. Is the fact that quality today needs to integrate. You should not choose between the quality given by the material and the quality given by the way you do. When I see a responsible into bracket material, I'm not looking at the material immediately, but I'm going immediately to understand who is the company behind it. Because people can say to me that this is a very responsible material, quality material, whatever. But the real quality is coming from the fact that a good company has done it. A company that has a strategy for innovation, for example, a strategy to produce, a strategy for ethics, a strategy for innovation. The good product and the quality product is a consequence of a good company. So that's the first thing. The companies need to guarantee the products that they do, or it's just a speculation, as we know. We are talking about a lot of greenwashing. For me, the greenwashing is when you have a great storytelling, but not a story making behind. You have the ideal situation when the storytelling and the story making are aligned. In this case, it's very good. But we are losing business when we have a great story making and not a storytelling. So it's really the quality thing needs to go in the direction to represent the journey of the garment from the company down to, let's say, the transparency about all the kind of steps to make it. And we go again toward the communication, how we can communicate the quality of a garment or of a fabric or of a yarn if, we just look at the style. So the companies today has the responsibility to dig into how the things are made in order to be able to talk about the quality. And the quality is still durability. And we go into the circular driven, possibility in this case. But at the same time, I just see a lot of people saying, I'm sustainable. And what does it mean? But at the same time, we need to help him or her because without our information, it's very difficult. Law is coming. Europe is really committed, not an easy period to make these kind of things.
Yeah, I think it's interesting you brought that up, the changes in the laws and in the regulations, particularly like you say, coming from Europe, because when I'm talking to brands, most of them want to be more sustainable. It's just that they find it very challenging to be able to come up with a solution that's affordable and that also enables them to create a product that's fashionable. There seems to be almost like a trade-off. It's either going to be a lot more expensive or you have to sacrifice a lot on the visual appeal. You're not able to do as much with some of the materials. What do you see happening on that side?
Well, I think a lot of brands still thinks that in order to be sustainable, you need to have a stamp. That's it. And at this point, you can think that is going to be impossible. But I remember in 2007, people that wanted to be fashionable, performing, and responsible was really a challenge. But today is not like that. We have technologies, we have solutions. Of course, it's not about perfection. You cannot have everything because there are still some technology burden to solve. But today you can do more. The new generation of designers are people that start with the information. How many designers today knows the impact of their choices in fabric choice or design choice? I think just a few, much more than 10 years ago, Jane. I think the first question you need to answer being a brand is to understand the impact of your, without that, we are still looking at t-shirt done for summertime or for holiday time that will last, maybe should last 1 month because it's the color of the season, because the kind of, let's say, style is something that will not last. And they do it in polyester, in recycle, and also recycle polyester. But, if you're using a material that will last forever, like the polyester, for something that is going to end its life very soon, of course, it's a problem. But the problem is not just the fact that you're using a polyester, but you're using a polyester for the wrong application. Because, something like a recycled polyester, you can use it for, I don't know, a raincoat. But you expect the durability. You expect, because if you're doing a raincoat with natural materials and you need to stand for the rain, you need to put a lot of coatings on. So I think it's about not being the designer of the past where people was just touching fabric and deciding what to do, but you need to have a knowledge.
Yeah.
Innovation is the base. Without innovation, we are not going anywhere. To innovate without impacting or impacting as less as possible. Because if I'm doing garments, if I'm doing products that are not fashionable, that does not represent myself, I will never buy it. And if I do not buy it, if there is not a commercial, sustainable business, how can we change the system?
Yeah, you're right. That's really a big challenge because it has to be commercially viable. Otherwise, there's no incentive to really do it. So it is a bit of a conundrum for many brands right now.
we see that a lot of people is still looking at the sustainability as a problem and not a solution.
Right.
And we are not saying that we have to be pure, because we know that we are talking about an industry. We are not talking about a boutique. I remember that when I started to work, we were looking to the main big, brands that were avant-garde in order then to the other one to follow. Today is all the same. So we have to reestablish. We have, I think, a great opportunity here to do a new way. It's a new way to do business, by the way. I don't think that the way that it's at the moment about really mass market is going to last forever. We cannot afford it because there are no sources anymore. But at the same time, it has created such a lot of waste and a lot of problem at ethical level. I think that much more to gain there.
I think that's an interesting point that you brought up, because we've certainly been noticing that as well, is that, yes, you do still have big brands that account for the majority of the market, but it's a smaller majority than it used to be. I'm not sure I phrased that very well, but it used to be that everything was just big brands in recent years. And now we're seeing that some of that footprint has contracted, and there's a lot more smaller brands, indie brands, regional, local brands coming in. And you're right, they are able to do things in a more sustainable way, in a more creative way, more artisan way, as you were saying. So I think that is a very interesting shift that you've pointed out. It could be that this is what will help get sustainability moving in apparel and finally make it, be the first step in the ladder, you might say.
Well, I still believe that anyway, sustainability has to be integrated in design-driven and innovation-driven clothing, apparel and fashion, because we cannot and we do not want to have proposals and innovations that are not good looking and that are not innovative. So everything has to come together. And that's the place where certain companies are prepared to do it. And we can see that they have done amazing things, and some other that needs to learn. The only problem at the moment is that as the laws are coming, if the big companies are not looking at these laws now, they could be out of the market soon. And it's happening, Jane, it's very clear. But, we know that the human being is not changing unless there is a big crisis, a big war, so it's time to change, and it's time to change for the good of everybody and not just one.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think it's interesting. So much of sustainability, we've been focusing on the materials, and certainly the materials play a very key role because that's what the product is made out of. But what about technology? We're seeing a lot coming through on that potentially could reduce waste back, almost down to zero, just because of the way the, automation is coming through, AI is coming through, enables us to have tighter inventory control, enables people to be able to do more, even on-demand manufacturing, which can take waste down dramatically, as well as 3D sampling. How do you see that factoring into the total picture, like the 360-degree picture of trying to reduce waste and bring garments to a more sustainable place?
I'm just back from Milano Unica.
Okay.
And to me, it has been amazing because we had at least 5 projects, but not project in the sense that has a start and the end, but new way to do business that started there. 2 concerning materials that we think are normal, natural, but normal. We just launched with Schneider Group, that is a top maker. So it's something, you have the ship that will be shaved in order to have the greasy wool. And then Schneider Group, that has a global network, is taking this greasy wool and it transforms into tops. We have a new solution in order to have the full traceability of the wool from the farm to the final garments. And at Milano Unica, we have been talking about this Authentico brand that is involving all the steps of the production. and that will align from the beginning till the end. And as you know, it's not so easy when you talk about pharma, for example, to have a lot of value aligned. And they did it. They are normalizing. There is an integrity scheme that is talking about the welfare of the animal, the 5 domains, all these kind of things. At Milano Unica, Autentico by Schneider has been launching together Marzotto Group, at least 6 collection of the brands of Marzotto is presenting wool with the Autentico brand injection of traceability system, for example. We have been having the conversation about linen alliance for European hemp and linen flax, linen and hemp, that is safeguarding the European origin of linen. A lot of people does not even know that 3/4 of the linen is produced in Europe. And so we characteristics that are amazing, and there are certification to state for it. So in a simple way, you can give value these things. Technology, we have seen 2 technologies. We have been talking about Revecol. Revecol is a chemical auxiliary that it's really needed for color, for dyeing, and also finishing. ERC has been getting award as the main source for chemical auxiliary, upcycling the exhausted vegetable oil from restaurants and houses. Can you believe?
Wow.
So you are taking a very critical oil because you need to stock it and you pay for it. And they are now doing these chemical auxiliary that are performing as the normal one. It's all certified end-to-end. And is competitive as well. We have been talking with Bamber that is launched the new fibrillation system together with LCA study report that is decreasing 30% of energy and 40% of water. We have company like Pure Denim that is not just using performing material, amazing material for the denim wear, but they have their own technology to dye through new machines that are really small and they can do very quickly without any kind of impact, So there are many of these things that are entering the market, keeping the solution, and they're also competitive in price. So we need to do more and more to share this kind of innovation. And I'm just talking about 3-4 things that I see in there, but, we have to do more to create consciousness. But at the same time, we also invite company to communicate as much as possible in a better way. And communicate means presenting this technology supported by measurement. So we have to review our way to communicate.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I think that it's so interesting to hear about all these developments that are coming onto the market and that are offering people, as you're saying, solutions that are sustainable, but that also, have a fashion element so that it's attractive, so that the brand is able to produce something that has selling floor appeal, as well as being able to check the box on increasingly, as you're pointing out, stricter sustainability legislation that is, as you're saying, is coming, and brands are going to have to be able to figure out how to comply.
And these are easy to go, because it's already done. They need just to let's say, replace the old way to do things with the new way to do things, and create a design that will, highlight and support at best these, because we need the beautiful things. We need the beauty to be there. So
yeah, I think it's so interesting. And I want to thank you so much for joining us here today on A Seat at the Table, for sharing so many insights and, taking us into your world and showing us what's happening that a lot of people who are listening to this might not be aware of, simply because we're not exposed to it in the way that you are. So thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much, Jane, to you and to this amazing appointment for having me and having the possibility to share a little bit of what is happening. So really, really grateful. Grazie.